talking hella reckless. I won't even stress it. Just kill him softly with my presence. Won't even address it. They say it's lonely at the top, but this the best shit ever. Hey, don't you see me out here shining, bitch? I'm barely flexing. I hear him talking hella reckless. I won't even stress it. Just kill him softly with my presence. Won't even address it. They say it's lonely at the top, but this the best shit ever. And even if we die today, this shit gon' live forever. Live forever.
Welcome to Rainbows and Unicorns, where we share that life is not all rainbows and unicorns. Life isn't going to go your way unless you work hard and you put out the good energy. Still is not always going to go your way. And I think the sooner that we get that and through our heads and in our minds, the sooner that we can go out and actually achieve what we're capable of achieving. So, and today I'm joined by Brianna.
Hello.
She's back, and we are going to talk about our experience in San Antonio during the Adaptive CrossFit Games. I'm going to just kind of dive right in. So the Adaptive CrossFit Games are international CrossFit competition for disabled athletes. That's amputees, that's neurological disorders, that's things like spinal cord injury, spina bifida, cerebral palsy. You have short stature, there's intellectual. Literally for every disability, this is the place where they come to compete. And it's powered by an organization called WheelWOD, which is an organization that's close to my heart. When I first started doing Adaptive CrossFit, WheelWOD was the one that kind of introduced me to the workouts, how to do it. The team there is unbelievable. Gotta love Stouty, Johnny, and Kevin. They're just absolutely amazing people. And so it's a really cool event. This year was really neat because I've been competing CrossFit since 2018. And this is the first time wheelchair users physically got to go to the CrossFit Games. In the past, our competition would be over after semis. And so this is the first time that we got to actually physically go compete on a global level. WheelWOD had the WheelWOD Games pretty regularly yearly, which was similar, but this is the first time it was a CrossFit sanctioned event, which was really cool. It was cool to be a part of. So diving in, from a personal development standpoint, I was not ready for the CrossFit Games at all. And I know Bree went in the same, not being ready for what we were about to experience. And why do you feel that you were so ill prepared?
Well, for me, it was like lack of preparation. I think my biggest issue was I got too much in my head. And before I even got on the floor, I was already comparing myself to other athletes. I'm like, man, how can I even think that I have a chance competing against these people? And I kind of froze up all summer long when I should have just been keeping my head down, focusing on me. I focused on other people and I froze, and like analysis paralysis kind of got the best of me, and I let my fears get the best of me, and I did not prepare correctly. I think that's my biggest ill preparement was just not making the time.
100%. Before the games, I probably trained CrossFit outside of semis and qualifiers 3 to 4 times. Leading up to the games. That's all I had trained CrossFit. I was doing traditional weightlifting in the Wheel With Me Adapt Fit app. And I think that we also didn't realize, because in the past, I didn't travel like I am now. I travel for work so much. You travel for work so much. And so I know that was a big thing that threw a wrench into our CrossFit training. But also, on my side, it was, or both of our sides, it's Wheel With Me Foundation. Like, you're doing so much. You took on that organization as a whole this year. And I think that's so important to recognize, like, okay, you took on a full-time job, but then you also took on a full-time nonprofit on top of that full-time job. And then same with me. Nikki and I merged Wheel With Me Adapt Fit last November, and so that was still pretty fresh. And then I bought into a brick and mortar store, and I think it's highly underestimated how much time and commitment a brick and mortar store takes to cover expenses, and then you add in employees to help run the store. And that as a whole was such just a difficult transition for me personally, someone who's only had online stores. And I didn't realize how much physical time owning a brick and mortar takes on top of the stress of keeping things running. Best decision I ever made was buying into Freedom Longevity and Wellness. Lake Norman, if you're in the Lake Norman area, come see us. But best decision I ever made, but also probably one of the most underestimated decisions I've ever made. Being an entrepreneur in the online space is, man, it's peanuts compared to owning a physical storefront, and I underestimated that with the travel schedule for sure.
I have to agree. I think kind of jumping full time into travel this year, I was like, no, well, we've done this before. We've traveled for, the nonprofit or for fun, but then actually being launched into like every single week being on the road and then trying to do all the things I was already doing, I just did not, I did not calculate my time correctly, and I did not calculate how it was going to affect my body. Like, change is big for all of us, whether it's physical or mental or, personal development stuff. I mean, that all takes a toll on us. And I think both of us kind of didn't anticipate what our bodies were going to go through this summer, especially because last year was such a different vibe, right? So we did 75 hard together. She's preparing for surgery. And going from that to this, and we are feeling just a lot of things.
I know I gained 15 pounds this year, and I have no shame about it. I've been trying to come back from surgery, get my muscles to re-engage. The only shame I do have is I didn't prioritize protein. So a lot of that weight I put on was not lean muscle mass. It was actually fat. Since I've gotten my nutrition back in line, I'm not fully tracking, but I'm prioritizing protein. I'm working at easing back into tracking. And I think that's important to note too, is when you're trying to make any change in your life, by taking small steps to create that change is how you're going to get there. We try to go 0 to 100 real quick, and it's like, I'm going to do this all or nothing mentality. And it's like, wait a minute, do small steps. If working out is something that you're struggling with, let's aim for 2 to 3 times a week. You hit that 2 to 3, okay, let's go to 4 to 5 with 2 recovery days, and now you're solid, right? And I think that was the biggest thing, is that I had this all or nothing mentality where now I've only been training 3 to 4 times a week. That's the most I've been getting in, just due to my schedule, due to the way things are. And I really want to get back to where I was, but I also have to recognize my circumstances as a whole have changed. And I think so often we focus on where we've been without recognizing circumstances that changed in that moment.
Yeah, we literally just had this conversation yesterday about how we want to get back on track and how we just want to go from 0 to 100, but we know that that's like really not going to be sustainable. And so I told her, I was like, great, let's focus on protein for the next couple weeks. Once we lock that back in, then we can worry about getting our training in for a couple more weeks once we lock that in. Then we can keep stacking the things that we know can get us back to where we need to be. But that was my other biggest hindrance, is like, I just want to go right back into everything. And you can't. You have to be mindful, and that's okay as well. Like she says, meet yourself where you're at. I think that has been our biggest lesson since CrossFit, is just meeting yourself where you're at and just, again, focusing on that 1% better.
That's a massive thing. With that being said, I do want to say that this year, the CrossFit Games, I definitely surprised myself. I was able to do movements I hadn't been able to do with the Wheel Lock Games in 2022. And so even though I finished 5th in my division, I'm so proud of that. I'm so happy with where I ended up, because I definitely wasn't expecting it. Wasn't expecting to get to perform the way I did. And then definitely, I love when you get to surprise yourself. And I think you kind of experienced the same thing I did there too.
I did, yeah, because again, we weren't prepared for this, and I was thinking, man, I did not put in the work to deserve to be where I was, honestly, in the lineup. And I finished 6th right behind Jessie. And I also surprised myself. I honestly thought that I was going to go in and be at the bottom of the barrel, which would have been fine. It was my first competition, but it wasn't even some of the movements. It was just the actual full days, like getting up early, going through the double workouts, making sure you're on time, making sure you have all the right pieces, making sure you understand all of that. That was being able to check all of that stuff off was really cool. And we were really blessed that we had a really good team to kind of help make sure that all went really smoothly. And I think that was the biggest eye opener, is like all the pieces that go into this.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's something to say about life too, right? Is it's literally all the small things. And I just had this conversation today of, if your personal life is off and you aren't correct there, if the person that you go home to every day, whether that's your parents or your loved one or your roommate, if that relationship's not adding value to your life and it's taking from your energy, that relationship is counterproductive to where you want to be. And eventually that energy is going to begin to spill over into everything else that you have going on. And so while it might not matter right in this immediate moment, it will matter in the future. It's no different than our nutrition, our fitness, what we consume physically and mentally, And I think
act in the world.
Yeah, the way that we act in the world. You're rude to people, that eventually creates your mood to where you're just a miserable person. And I mean, how do we know, right? We've been there. We've been those people. And I think that's so important for everyone to understand is like, hey, you have control over the way your world is if you're willing to put in the time commitment to create that world for yourself. Do you have anything else you want to share on like the personal development side of the experience across the games?
So I went into it just trying to bring awareness to adaptive CrossFit in general, and you and I both agreed, we're like, oh, we're going to do this one time, then we're going to be done. After finishing it off, I will do the openings and the semis if I make it, and then we'll decide from there if I want to go again, just because it was such a cool experience. I don't want to close myself off to just saying no. So I think that was a really cool life experience, is just being willing to open myself to more.
Yeah, I love that, especially not being an athlete or having an athletic background. I think that's really cool too, is she doesn't have an athletic background. She was never an athlete, and she went in and did this incredible feat. I mean, it's 4 days straight of just like 2 to 3 workouts a day of just intense CrossFit movements, and it's no joke. I want to dive into San Antonio as a city, and this is where this podcast may get controversial, so just hear us out. I want to start with the good side, of course, and I really want to talk about our Uber driver, Carlos. So Carlos rolls up in an F-150.
Huge.
And a slightly lifted F-150. And Carlos, his family owns this Mexican restaurant that he's been running for a couple of years because his parents are elderly. Like, super dope dude in San Antonio. And he comes to pick us up, and we're looking at this truck, and I'm like, Brie, there's no way I'm putting myself in there. We just did 2 crazy workouts in the sun. I'm smoked. There's no way. And he's like, oh, not a problem. I'll pick you guys up. And he picked us up and put us in the truck. And then on the way down the interstate, it starts raining, and Bree's cushion looked like she forgot to get off, like whenever it went into the bed of the truck, and so it looked like it was gonna fly off. And the dude pulls off in the rain, pouring rain, and just gets her cushion off for her. Like, super, super kind dude. I thought that was really cool because it definitely gave. Sometimes when Uber drivers see the wheelchair, they get a certain way, and it's a little huffing and puffing stuff. And so, like, for Carlos just to be so down. That was dope. Yeah. Shout out to Carlos in San Antonio, the Uber driver that's family owns a Mexican restaurant.
I think a cool experience for me is the fact that we were so close to the Alamo that we got to check it out not only once, but a couple different times. So we had like the daytime version and then a little nighttime visit. We got to learn a little bit about the history and just kind of soak it in with our friends. I think for us personally, our friends were a little more excited about the history aspect of it, but it was still really cool to like sit there with them, talk about the stories, talk about what happened there, and like be able to see like where we've come since then. And that was a really cool aspect as well.
And on the Alamo, so my handler is a PT. The person that was organizing the whole entire thing, Revive CLT, Ashley was my first PT when I got out of the hospital, and now she's one of my close friends. And I think it's really cool how that came full circle to me, but we got to go there, and then we got to go with one of your best friends from your childhood, which is so freaking cool too, because he was also stoked. So we had 2 separate groups, 2 separate visits where both the people were just stoked on going to see the Alamo, and it was so cool. I will say, wheeling under that like hallway and just looking and feeling the history, the energy. Sounds like I learned music. I don't know. Some people are just very inconsiderate and self-centered.
They are, and that town definitely had a good mix of like good people and bad people. One of the last good things I want to mention is that they did have like volunteer teams going all throughout the city, day and night, cleaning it up. So there wasn't, in where we were specifically in between our hotel and the convention center, there wasn't a lot of trash, there wasn't a lot of garbage or rubbish or, you know, a bunch of stuff like that. And so that was really nice to see volunteers being offering to keep the city clean.
That was cool. That was all volunteer based. And then, I mean, some of the positives, right, was they were filming 1923 outside of our hotel, so we got to see all the old cars, getting to hang out with our friends, both from home and afar, and just getting to connect with all the people that we got to connect with and that human connection. Getting ice cream, but then also, what about Plant Guy?
Okay, we had such a variety of people, which we're about to get into, but Plant Guy was, I think, our favorite. There was this man dressed up as a potted plant, and he would just trick people, scare people, pop out of people, and we had to sit there for at least 2 minutes and just
watch him scare people. It was the best. It was the absolute best.
It was very fun and it was fun humor there. Yeah,
I agree. Now is the downside, and this is where we've traveled gosh, just so many major cities this year. And New York City was one of them that we had previously talked about, where we went and got matching tattoos on our legs. And we were followed by people screaming, white women are the problem, and screaming these things at us, following us, yelling at us. And then we get back to the car, and the car's in the parking lot, and there's people all over my car. It was a really poor experience. But San Antonio, that was a whole different animal. And I just want to talk about, we wheeled the sidewalk. So we wheeled to the convention center. It was probably, what, a mile?
Yeah, it was a 10-minute roll.
Yeah, it was about a mile from our hotel, probably.
Yep.
And so we wheeled to the convention center every day. And the daytime was good, but it was the afternoon and evening when things started to get dicey.
Yep.
And you have either, I don't know if they had mental issues or if they were using drugs, but there was just this mass amount of homelessness and just chaos. And with San Antonio having the Riverwalk, the Alamo, it's a very high tourist area. And we happened to be hanging out on the street, and this guy was having a mental breakdown. He just had his ears plugged, and he was going, nah, 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 like screaming on the sidewalk.
Half an hour straight, and there's kids getting pushed in strollers, families going by, and he's just literally having a schizophrenic breakdown. And it was just
So sad.
no one helped him, no one tried to push him along, no one tried to get him in a different place. And these poor kids and families had to be going to these really cool attractions like the Rabu's Believe It or Not Museum or Legoland or the Mirror Maze. And these people are just sitting right outside of all of these supposed to be family safe attractions. And it was just very eye-opening for us, I think.
Yeah. You don't, it's so, first of all, it's sad. It's sad that our people get this way. It's frustrating because you see all this money being sent overseas to these other countries, but what about our people right here? Our people are hurting here. I mean, we walked around a corner, and we walked around a corner to a man shooting up on the street in broad day. Like, it was broad daylight.
Right behind the hotel. Yeah.
And that man, there's a problem. And the fact that when they're filming, so we talked to our hotel staff about it because we were just so blown away with the kids and everything going on. And so while we were talking about them, and they said that when they film, they push the homeless, mental illness, drug addicts, they push them throughout the city into these little pockets. And so we're just seeing the people that have been pushed to this pocket of the city. So rather than solving the problem, they're just pushing it around the city. And that brings me to the next thing that really just chapped my butt. Was we had an Uber driver who used to work for charters, and he was taking us to the airport. Said that he left the charters after they started busing in illegals. They would get off the bus, be handed a debit card. What's your PIN?
1, 2, 3, 4.
They would tell them, what's your PIN? 1, 2, 3, 4. Send them either to a hotel or the airport to go and fly to a different city. Our tax dollars have been paying for illegal immigrants to be funded and come to our country. What this really made me mad was a week after the CrossFit Games and experiencing San Antonio and learning this about the illegals, my home state of North Carolina was hit by Hurricane Helene. And when we were hit hard. And they haven't found a lot of people. The death toll is estimated to be around 800 was the last number I saw. FEMA is not stepping in. They are giving loans, $750 loans, and they're denying people. I got a text message from a good friend of mine. If you look up Ridge Journal, I was on the podcast a couple years ago. He has a podcast, had a podcast studio in Black Mountain, North Carolina, one of the places that was hit. He told me last night his thing on Instagram, his little note to his friend said, fuck FEMA. I said, why does it say fuck FEMA? And I'll drop it here so you guys can actually see the exchange. They applied for a loan. They have $30,000 in damages from the storm. They need to replace the retaining wall. There's trees down all around. They need funding and help, and they were denied. In Black Mountain, North Carolina, one of the places that are still closed. We are 3 weeks after the hurricane now, a little at 3 weeks. They are still closed. They're not able to reopen. That's still an absolute mess. They still haven't found a lot of people. It is an absolute issue, and the government's not talking about it. Nobody's doing anything about it. It's just being wiped under the rug. Yep. And we're so focused on this election that we're like, what the heck about our American people? Sending all this money overseas. Let's give Ukraine more money. Let's keep sending our money over here. But when it comes to the American people, the government's just like, fuck them. And so with that being said, go ahead. I'm sorry, I just went on a tangent.
Oh no, you're fine. It's just it's just hard. You know, there's people here working their butts off, trying to do their best, trying to make ends meet. We're paying outrageous amount in interest and taxes and all these other things. But yeah, all this money is just getting shipped away. When there's people here, like she said, we need help. We, not only people like with homes and jobs need help, but then people on the street need help. Our vets need help. Our disabled community needs help. Everyone needs help. But yeah, we shovel. There is a podcast that we listened to and they did the math on it, and it was just billions and billions and billions of dollars that went into other countries, while even like disaster reliefs were getting maybe 100,000, if that.
And on top of that, at the end of the day, you're working till about August just to pay taxes, and then the rest of that money is yours. And if our money is going overseas, you're paying taxes to pay for overseas stuff. Like, is that something that really is benefiting you as a person? And you have to ask yourself, what is going to benefit me as an individual and an American? We can focus on the minority disability stuff later, but like, at the end of the day, disability is not our biggest problem in our life. Our biggest problem is being able to afford groceries. The idea of moving out of my parents' basement. The idea of being able to go out and build whatever I want to build. And if you do not vote in this 2024 election with an educated vote, educate yourself beyond the news headlines. Read policy, read the things, educate yourself, and then go make an informed decision. Don't just focus on headlines, because if you focus on headlines, you're going to make a poor decision, and we're going to be in an even worse spot than we are now. I have read the policy of both candidates. I have made an educated choice based on that policy, not what the news is telling me to do. And I think it's so important that we actually follow through with that, because this election is so important. You like your freedom, you like being able to afford life. If everything is all the same for everybody across the board, people aren't going to want to work. Why am I going to work hard to be able to support you, to be able to do what you do? You're taking away the actual American dream of being able to come here and create whatever you want. Listen to the immigrants that have come from other countries to get away from what our country is trying to be turned to. Communism and socialism is not the answer. Go out and work hard and create the life you want to live, regardless of your physical ability. You have a decision every day to become the person that you need to be to create the change you want to create. And if you aren't willing to do that work, nothing's going to change. So I'm sorry, but I'm so frustrated with where our current state of the world is, and if nothing changes, nothing's going to change, and it's only going to get worse. It's going to get harder to live. I know that I'm tired of not being able to afford groceries and to live my life.
I'm tired of not being able to afford groceries.
You voted already, didn't you?
I did. I also did a little bit of research because I knew I was going to be traveling on the road during the actual election, so I took the time to educate myself, and I got it in, had my witnesses sign a little piece of paper, my vote's already in.
When I vote when I get home from this trip, I want to get my vote in early so I don't have to worry about it on election day, but I just go vote. Your vote matters, and it doesn't matter. Choose the better candidate. Choose the better option. Don't just vote because you don't like what one person's saying or the other person's saying. You need to make sure that you make an informed choice and actually vote. And if you're not going to vote, you don't get room to have an opinion on what's going on in our government.
I do have to say, whichever side you vote for, the more votes that we get, the less likely either side is able to cheat. So, I mean, if you just want to keep it as fair as possible, you have to put your vote in.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that got a little fired up and passionate. My bad. Appreciate you guys. Sorry it's been so long. I definitely have another outline like this to share my peers' experience with you, but this one felt more important to get out sooner. So, as always, if you gained some value, share it with a friend, let them know what you gained. Appreciate your guys' support always. Thank you for watching. This was Rainbow News.
I won't even stress. Just kill him softly with my press. Won't even address. They say lonely at the top, but it's the best shit ever. Hey, don't you see me out here shining, bitch? I'm barely flexing. I hear him talking hella reckless. I won't even stress. Just kill him softly with my press. Won't even address. They say lonely at the top, but it's the best shit ever. And even if we die today, this shit gon' live forever. Live forever.